Hello, my name is LaMarcus Thurman, and I'm the Vice President of Community Lending for United Purpose Mortgage. I'm sitting here today with legendary Cleveland activist Barbara Anderson, who has dedicated her career fighting for fair housing right here in Cleveland, Ohio. April is Fair Housing Month,
It sure is.
and United Purpose Mortgage is committed to helping families across our markets gain access to fair housing in the city of Cleveland as well as the other communities we serve. We want to spotlight the incredible work that Barbara has done throughout her career and chat with her about the state of fair housing here in Cleveland and across the country.
Well, thank you.
Barbara, thank you for sitting down with me today.
Well, thank you, LaMarcus, for allowing me this opportunity to sit and just kind of chat with you about what I see, what I have seen, and where do we go from here.
Perfect. Well, let's start with the first question, Barbara.
Sure.
You spent more than 30 years fighting to ensure that to improve the quality of life for Cleveland residents and ensure they have access to fair housing. What drew you to the advocacy work that you do today?
Well, LaMarcus, to be honest, it was my own plight.
Okay.
I was in a position where I just seemingly couldn't find any help. I had recently moved into a neighborhood, and because we were the first blacks in that neighborhood, we sustained a lot of arson. And it was just arson after arson, burned down the back of the house, burned down the side doors, then, of course, burned down the garage twice. We got into a position where the insurance company said, if you have another fire, we're no longer going to insure you.
Mm.
And of course, we had another fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the expense of going through that was so great that it had really depleted our financials. The monies that we had were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started looking for another um, bank, another financial institution that could help us through that. What we didn't know is that this was in the very early stages of predatory lending. And so we ended up with a bank that switched us to another bank, that switched us to another bank, that switched us to a financial institution, and finally we ended up with something called Fairbanks. Now, I unfortunately took the name of Fairbanks to mean that it was going to be fair and it was going to be a bank.
Right.
Well, it was neither.
Mm.
And so we stumbled into predatory lending with the costing of fees after fees, um, the statement that they had not received our payments on time, and so we were getting all these delinquent fees, and we knew we were sending it in time. I had even gone to the place where I was sending the bank, the mortgage payments in through registered mail, certified mail, so somebody can sign it, so we know it got there on time. But that didn't keep us from falling into trouble. Well, I had first one fantastic lady who was with me. Her name was Fannie Lewis. She was a councilman in what was then Ward 7. And she counseled me and helped me. I went from, my first councilman was, now why can't I remember his name? But anyway, I went from him to Rivka and then finally to Tony Brackatelli. And going through those council people, they did what they could, but it didn't keep us from predatory lending. And so finally, I met up with another mentor of mine. Her name was Inez Killingsworth. And Inez was already doing great work in the community. We began to do a walk. And as we walked through the community, she recognized that a lot of people who used to be there weren't there anymore. They had lost their homes. And so she and I together decided that we would pull all these people together and we would do something about it. And it wasn't so much just she and I, certainly we were the leaders, but the community came strongly behind us because they wanted to save their homes. My home was actually the first home that was saved in that organization. I guess I should say the whole word, in that organization. But people saw that mine could be saved, and they came forward and theirs was saved too. Mind you, we weren't bringing money back to the city or the state. We were bringing that money back to the people who had lost it. And so they got their money. In the neighborhood that I worked in was Slavic Village, the neighborhood I lived in, um, the neighborhood that had treated me so badly, um, they began to be highly affected by it. And they realized that I was being able to save my home and others, and they came and started asking me to save theirs.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, my statement then and its statement now is that we may have come over on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And they recognized that, and we were able to make a difference.
That's amazing, Barbara. And one of the things that stood out was the connectivity to the mentors. And Inez was the last mentor that really made a change.
Yes.
So for a lot of people that's probably out there and probably in the same boat, how did you was able to connect? What was the synergy that for you and Inez to connect, and how did that develop?
You know, it's interesting because I actually ended up walking to a meeting that was going to be held at Miles at the library.
Okay.
Well, I worked for the city at that time. And so I guess I was looking not so much like a organizer, or not. I had on a suit and I had the briefcase. And when I walked in, people turned around and looked at me like I was from Mars. They were looking at me like it was a board meeting. They were looking at me up and down. And I came and I sat at the table. And actually, Inez pulled me over. She said, "Come and sit down right here." And so I sat down next to her, but I could feel that I was out of place. And she said to the group then, "Give her a chance." And I didn't realize what that meant because Inez didn't know me either. And she turned to me, she said, "Why are you here?" And I started talking to her about how I was losing my home. And I had gone to so many different organizations, so many different people asking for help, and I wasn't able to get it. And I talked about how I had actually even then gone to the governor then, Governor Celeste, and how he had tried to help also. And I just went through a litany of names. But the help that I needed was financial help. I didn't need any more exposure now. I needed financial help. And she turned to them and she said, "This is one of our newest organizers." And I looked at her because I'm like, And that's how it began. And some of the most comforting words she ever gave to me is I would say, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that." And she would say, "You know how to do stupid." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you know how to do not stupid?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Don't do stupid." And she said, the first time the mayor ever was the mayor was the first time he was mayor. She said, the first time anybody has ever been anything is the first time they did it.
That's powerful.
And I sat there and I thought about that. Yeah, this will be my first time.
Powerful.
I can do it.
You can do it. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Barbara. From your vantage point, what are some of the biggest obstacles facing Cleveland when it comes to housing?
I think the one that I see right now that I'll pull out of my pocket would be investor takeover.
Okay.
I'm very fearful of that. I think it cheats regular people out of the opportunity to get a home. It cheats them out of the opportunity to live where they would want to live. And as long as we allow investors to come in and scoop up so many of the properties, then the ability for regular people to save and purchase a home is going to be skewed. And that's going to be unfortunate because, as you know, and I know you know, that's one of our generational blessings. It's one of our generational financial opportunities that we pass down to our families, to our children, to our grandchildren, is the ability to first purchase that home, hold on to it, pay it off, and then move forward. And so with so many investors coming in, it does limit the housing stock, period. And certainly it limits I'm going to call the beginning housing stock, those housings that may be under $100 or under $50,000. It limits the ability for people to get those homes.
Okay.
So I'm watching that.
Right, I understand. And so that's on a local level, right, in Cleveland, and I don't disagree with you because I hear the same sentiment that a lot of, ambassadors that don't live in the area buys property and for whatever reason just let it go. So let's look on a macro level. Let's look at the global level. What do you think some of the big obstacles we're facing as a country when it comes to fair housing?
Okay, I think, of course, discrimination on any level is going to be wrong. So whether it's racial, or age, or family, makeup, or whatever that is, disability, whatever that is, so first we have to address our willingness to accept discrimination. And so many of us will accept it on different levels. This doesn't impact me, so I don't really care about that one. That one's okay. That discrimination is okay. And we sometimes see it even when we're talking about, and one of the things is source of income. That's a discrimination. And so if I'm making money and I'm out working, I may not feel as free about someone being able to get a house that's on SSI or Social Security or receiving their monies from some other way. And so we have to be very careful that when we say no discrimination, that we mean no discrimination. If you can afford this house, if you have saved for this house and you can afford this house, then it's my willingness for you to take the house and make it a home. And so that is another area that we really have to manage, is our discrimination and allowing of discrimination. Let me say one other thing that may not be the question right then. The need for us to build relationships with the banker, build relationships with that real estate person so that they know what you're looking for. No more redlining. No longer will I determine, as the real estate professional, no longer will I determine where you live. You tell me where you want to live. You tell me what you can afford, and I will go out and look for that. Okay, so those are some of the things that I constantly get. I get the feedback from the community. Well, I didn't even really want that house, but he said that's all that I could get, or he said, or she said, that's what I was going to have to deal with. This is what they found for me. So it was the only thing that they showed me. They only showed me 2 houses, and both of them, right here in this area. So I just made a choice.
That's awesome.
So we have to be. We're going to get better, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to get better.
Absolutely.
We're going to take care of that.
I agree 100%, and I think that's one of the things I love about work for Howard Hanna and this community lending division is to help eliminate or stop the discrimination happening.
Yes.
And lead by, to your point, education versus application.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the words you shared. I'm excited about what we're doing in the community lending division under Howard Hanna, because I think that the synergy aligns together, and as well as the effort. So.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't.
I know you would. I appreciate that.
I know I'm cutting you off. I'm getting ready to cut you off.
No, absolutely.
I have a great grandson that's 9, and he's struggling in certain areas academically. And he told me that he couldn't do something. And I said, this is the way I want you to look at it. I want you to say, you can't do it yet. I said, because we're going to work with you, and you're going to be able to do it. And I said, so what you say, I can't do it yet. And so that's the same way I feel about housing.
Mhm.
You can't afford it yet.
Mhm.
You're going to build your savings. You're going to check your credit. You're going to get things in a line because, yes, you will be able to purchase the home you want if you do the right preparations.
Absolutely.
What's the plan? What's the purpose?
Mhm.
What's the expected outcome? Those are the things that you're going to work on. I plan on having a house. The purpose of my house is to provide for my family. My expected outcome is that I will save and I will get that home, that house, and turn it into a home. And so we have to kind of build ourselves up. Those are the things I really expect from Howard Hanna.
Absolutely.
Those are the things I expect from the banking institution. When they say, no, you're not going to be able to afford it yet.
Mhm.
These are the things that we can do in order to help you to get to that point where you can afford the home that you're looking for. And we together, working together, we can make all of that happen, but we
Absolutely.
have to work together.
Absolutely. It's all about empowering them,
It is.
and give them, to your point, the education they need to understand on layman terms.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's what we teach our potential borrowers, that it may not be no, it'll be a no, but it's never not never.
yeah,
So, and we create this journey, this pathway, to your point, to say, okay, here are some of the steps that would help you overcome the no today.
that's right.
As long as you're, to your point,
Yeah,
we got to be disciplined on both ends.
that's right.
It
That's
can't
right.
be a one-way street. So I'm commend you for teaching that lesson to your grandson,
Yeah.
who's young.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He's 9.
But so we take that same mentality for the adults as well.
Yeah, and I see that, and that's what works, right?
Mhm,
Is
mhm.
is that yeah? I'm saying no right now, so it's not yet,
Right,
but we can move towards that.
right.
We can progress, and I think that's what I like, really, just from speaking to you and from speaking to the deputies of
Mhm.
the world, is that I could sense that.
Mhm.
Is that it wasn't about just a money grabbing thing. It is about let's position people so that they can be in a better position than they are today.
Exactly.
If that's your dream, let me help you make that dream come true.
Oh, amen to that. Thank you, Barbara, for that.
Yeah.
No, you're incredibly well connected in the Cleveland area. You work with a wide range of community organizations, and you held a role with the city of Cleveland, which you mentioned earlier, in the fair housing space for more than 13 years, if my numbers are right.
Yes.
What advice do you have for someone who's looking to purchase a home in Cleveland right now?
Right this moment, first of all, save. Get connected to someone who can help you do that. Don't just go through the telephone book and pick out a name, but look for an organization or a company or a real estate company, a bank that is responsive to your needs. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? Make yourself the boss.
Mhm.
And once you can do that, then you can move on. But you first cannot give that power to someone else. Stay empowered and stay in charge and stay in control. And don't be afraid to say that's not what I was expecting, that's not what I wanted. And don't be afraid to step away. If it's not fitting your needs today, then step away. But be open. Be open to suggestions. Don't close down because no, you don't know it all. So don't close down. Don't close down on certain areas. Don't close down on certain amounts. Don't close down on certain suggestions because there's houses that I thought I would never say yes to that I ended up saying yes to because someone was smart enough to say, you can change all of that.
Right.
You can fix this up and you can change this and it will be what you wanted it to be. And so stay open to suggestions, but come with a plan.
I agree.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll add to that too, Barbara, is if you don't know, don't feel afraid to raise your hand to get clarity on whatever was conveyed to you.
So true.
You know, because that's where I think the dialogue gets muddy
Yeah.
and people start assuming, and we already know what happens when people assume.
Yes,
So,
we do.
but on a national scale, what do you think is missing in fair housing? What do you think needs to be done to make home ownership more accessible?
More accessible. Well, a lot of that depends on our market, and it also depends on our financial market. What we're doing with the rates and all of that. So yeah, legislatively, we're going to have to control some rates. We're going to have to look at how we raise and lower debt limits. Um, we're going to have to look at nationally. We're going to have to look at what does the Fair Housing Act really mean when we talk about affordable. Affordable for who and at what time period? Because what may have been affordable even in 2000 may not be affordable in 2020. And so how do we make adjustments for that? Who do we hold accountable for that? And what is going to be the national response to that? And that's where we're going to have to depend on legislators and our politics and all those people up above us. CFPB, the regulators, all of them play a role in that. And so they're going to have to stop working apart from each other and start working together in order to provide the best for the communities, the neighborhoods. That it's no longer just about Wall Street.
Right.
It has to be about Main Street.
I love it. Well said, Barbara. My last question for you. Are there any fair housing initiatives or projects that you're currently excited about? And what does those look like?
And I am excited about it because we are currently working diligently in Cleveland and the intervening suburbs also to provide more equitable financial assistance for them. Certainly the lead testing is going on right now. That's going to make a change in the housing and affordability of housing. So looking at lead, we're also looking at houses that are under $100,000. We did use the term under 50,000. We have used that for a long time. We even had a councilman, and I won't say his name, but although I think it's on record, a councilman who was a long-term councilman, one of our longest councilmen in the city of Cleveland, who was attempting to buy a home next door to him, who belonged to a neighbor who we knew who had recently passed away. And when he went to the bank, they told him that they don't make loans under $100,000. The councilman was livid. They didn't know he was a councilman. They didn't know who he was. So that kind of thing, we need to make sure that the city is aware of. And how do we offset that? There's also that discrimination with appraisals, where, my home may be appraised tens of thousands of dollars lower than another home that is pretty much looking the same. The east side, west side appraisal. Those kinds of things are the things that we are addressing now because that is an unfairness that we don't want to see.
Right.
It makes it not just difficult for the person that's purchasing or selling it, but it makes it difficult for the entire neighborhood. And we also are encouraging our neighbors to get to know each other, talk to each other, invest in each other, because you need them. I said the worst thing that we ever did, one of the worst things we ever did with language, was when we took the most valuable part of neighbor and all we were left with was hood. I said, you took the most valuable thing that we have to offer. You took the community. You took community engagement. You took friends. You took supporters away.
Right.
And now you're left with a hood, and we need to bring the neighbor back.
I love it. One of the things you said that resonated with me, Barbara, is if something's not right, speak up.
That's right. You have
Because
to.
nothing's going to happen in silence.
No. And that's the reason why we organize. And people think that when you organize, you're only organizing with people who are rah, 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 rah. No, we organize with banks. We organize, of course, with lending, all lending institutions, realtors. We organize with all of that because it's going to take all of us in order to get it together. I'm not going to be able to do it all on my own. You're not going to be able to do it all on your own. But together, we can make a difference. And that's what we're looking for now. We're looking for that difference.
But one voice. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been valuable to sit there and hear some of the things that you've done and uncover and continue to do in the city of Cleveland. And the city of Cleveland is fortunate to have you as a resident here in this area. So I appreciate your time.
And I appreciate you, and I appreciate the invitation and the willingness of you to just kind of let me go off script and go off and just say what was on my mind. So I appreciate that.
No, it's my pleasure, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No problem.